Hello, good evening, and welcome to what is the very last majority show, at least for the meantime, anyway. Over the past 3 years, we have given you Scotland's number one politics chat and discussion, which, of course, you have been part of, many of you, with your chats as well. I'm the host, Mark Devlin. I'm here tonight with the regular majority co-hosts, as David Griffiths, Mark Zegfeld, and, of course, Mary Devlin. Hi, Mark. You haven't been with us for a while. How are things with you?
Yeah, not too bad. Very busy, so it's been a bit hectic these last few months. So yeah, just getting on with things.
Yes, and what are you going to be talking about tonight?
Right, I'm going to talk about voter apathy and why that could be a big issue in 26.
Right, okay. And now, David, how are you today? You enjoying the good weather down in sunny Ayrshire?
Thoroughly enjoying the good weather down here, and it is unbelievably nice. So, yeah, really enjoying it. Thank you. Yes, good.
Very good. And what are you going to be talking about tonight?
Well, as it's the last show, I thought I'd go really out on the limb and do something different. So I'm going to talk about the next year's election and what I think might happen. There you go. How's that?
Oh, there you go. Right. Okay. Mary,
Hello, Mark.
How are you? Yes. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm a little bit sad that this is our final weekly show for now.
Yes. You will be doing a segment on something?
Just at the end, I'll be talking about what I've been covering over the last 3 years.
Right, okay. And we'll be talking about the SNP Jolly that is Tartan Day week, as well as giving our thoughts on the past 3 years. And we'll have the ultimate Zoomers, of which I've just realised I haven't made a wee screen for, but we'll have to make do anyway. All right, so we'll be back with all that and much more in just a moment. Right, welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's number one politics chat. As always, our aim is a better Scotland without the toxic nationalism that is strangling Scotland's potential. Here tonight, the co-hosts, David Griffiths, Mark Zegfeld, Mary Devlin. Huge thanks to our friends at United Against Separation Facebook page, who have supported us for a long time. Many of you are watching there, of course, from tonight. And thank you for your messages that are coming in right now.
And remember, sharing is caring. The number one thing you can do is to like the show on YouTube. So send the show off with a like.
That's right. We want to, so we're still here. So what we need to get those likes in, please do that.
And as usual, I will be managing the relentless flow of comments. So as always, keep them short and snappy, and I will aim to get as many of them up on screen as I can.
So for tonight, as usual, we'll go through the main stories of the week, and then we'll be talking about our highlights of these past 3 years. But for now, I suppose I have to tell you why we're going to close the show. It's not because we're bored. We enjoy doing the show. There's always some disaster or nutter or zoomer to talk about. But the issue for us really is it just takes so much time for us to prepare to produce the show, and that's time that Mary and I need to focus on our other work. I don't know if many of you know, but our other work is making websites and internet marketing for clients, and that's really suffered actually over the past few months and we need to put the time focus on that. So we'd love to keep going, but we just can't really do it at the moment. We may return with some specials near the 2026 elections, so please do look out for that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we've been doing, what our thoughts on the past 3 years towards the end of the show as well. I know, what are we going to do on a Wednesday night? Well, we're going to work during a Wednesday on stuff, but sadly, I mean, it's difficult because we know how much people like the show, and we know we enjoy doing it. So it's not like we don't like doing this show. So we have to stop. We actually like it, so it's really, really very difficult. Yes, Ian probably should at some point. Anyway, so let's get on to the news of the week. First of all, so we have a big week for John Swinney. He had got to go on a jolly to New York, wear a kilt in a parade with super gay Cumming, for an event that is promoted as Tartan Day. Now, just as an aside, I think this is a bit weird, this Tartan Day, because I lived in the United States, and whenever you say to an American the word tartan, they're like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And they'll say, "What do you mean, plaid?" You're like, "Okay, but plaid? We don't use that word here." And they say plaid, we say tartan. It's as if there's two different languages. Anyway, you know that movie, for example. You would know this, David. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Indeed.
The famous movie as well. So anyway, from the get-go, Tartan Day is just a bit weird to Americans, I think. I guess the idea is to make a kind of Scottish St. Patrick's Day parade, which would be fine but in my experience, while the Irish tend to stick together when they go overseas, Scots do try and avoid one another. David, if you saw John Swinney and Alan Cumming coming towards you down Fifth Avenue in kilts, what would your reaction be?
What would your reaction be? Just to go to your previous point, I was told when I was about 19, if you ever go abroad and you meet a Scotsman, run away. I was told that by that guy, no, seriously.
Really?
So don't think we were clannish or anything but abroad. So anyway, I always took that to heart until quite recently. Anyway, but imagine if I was a New Yorker, if I was living in New York and I was on Fifth Avenue one day going to work and I saw those two, I would think, God, who are these strange old men and why are they dressed in such ridiculous clothing? Whereas if I was a tourist on holiday out there, I'd look at them and think, God, I knew I should have gone to Boston. God, what am I doing here? So,
the other thing is that Fifth Avenue is really windy. It can be very unpleasant.
That's true. At this time of year, I've been, and it's like the streets there. If you've been to New York, you guys have been. Obviously, if you haven't been to New York, those streets are like canyons, and the wind. My God, as what's his name? As Shane McGowan said, the wind will go right through. There's no place to go.
You don't want Alan Cumming's bits waving at you from far down the street. That is not a good idea. Perhaps it's churlish to say that there should not be an event to celebrate Scotland in New York, but did it do that? First of all, foreign trade is reserved to the UK government. So what was John Swinney even doing there? Broadcaster Jim Spence was damning in his criticism of the First Minister, pointing out the junket was unlikely to be beneficial to hard-pressed Scots. And how could it? Swinney failed to meet any prominent American politicians. It didn't meet anyone in the Trump administration. Not even if he could. But I mean, they have to have a minder. If they do, they have to have someone from the UK government sitting in with them. So basically, he spent his time there going on parade at a baseball game and socialising with Mr. Cumming. Nice work if you can get it.
Sure.
They were supposed to be promoting Scotland to businesses. But did he have any meetings with any business leaders?
No, I don't think so. There was Ian Murray was there as the Secretary of State for Scotland, and he met BlackRock, I think, or some such thing as well. As expected, nationalist chancellors used the event to further their goal of having the world see Scotland as an independent country. Scotland as part of the UK is great. It's always Scotland alone is great. And with Swinney, he used to say that Scotland is respected because of the strength of its education system, infrastructure, and offshore energy. Now,
there's not a single American would know anything about any of those.
Well, apart from that, but the people here who know anything about that, the SNP have tanked Scottish education standards on infrastructure taking decades to duel the A9, and not to mention the ferries debacle, and they're committed to destroying Scotland's offshore energy business. Yep. Mark, is it a good idea to send a man with the demeanour of an undertaker to promote Scotland?
No, definitely not. But it is a bigger point. The point I'd like to make is we are seeing such big austerity in Scotland with our public services, yet they are going over there on what looks like a jolly, which is every year. Let's face it, every year it's just a big holiday for them. The politics of it looks bad. I think the First Minister, when we're seeing such massive historic cuts in this country, the First Minister should be in Scotland dealing with the problems we have in Scotland, especially when it's a devolved administration. It's not even a government. They shouldn't be going over to New York for a few days to have a nice big holiday and taxpayers benefit where it's costing. We don't even know how much it's costing because they never produce the figures of how much it costs.
They never do that.
And it's not just them; it's their entourage that go with them, all the spads that go with them, all the hangers-on that goes with them. They don't fly economy; they'll be flying first class. They'll be staying at the very best 5-star hotels. They'll be eating out at the very best hotel restaurants in New York. This will be costing a fortune, and it doesn't matter if it's £1 million, if it's £200,000, and people say, "Well, it's just pittance." It's not the point. The point is we are struggling with strong austerity, and they're all over there in New York walking down the street that's completely empty, by the way. There was nobody there. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for Scotland. And I think it's quite, I find it quite disgusting to watch when you see it, him standing there waving at all the nobody, well, waving at himself basically, because there's no one else there, is there?
No,
so I don't even know who he was waving at, to be honest with you.
No,
I find it quite disgusting. And we never hear of how much this actually brings into the country.
No.
How much businesses bring. I don't understand what business it brings into Scotland.
Yeah, quite.
You know, it's not tourist. It doesn't attract tourism. No. It doesn't attract investment into the country, because that's all done by the UK at a different level.
Yes,
a huge, massive different level to what he does. He's not having meetings with businesses. I really don't. It's a jolly.
Yeah, of course. That's
absolutely.
What it is. It's just part of this idea to show that Scotland is an independent nation in the ready. You know, that's the idea. But we see all that with, you know, Swinney, for example, talking about Gaza and stuff. You're like, what's it to do with you?
Quite.
You know, it's not to, you know, empty the bins. That's what I'm interested in. I went to potholes. You know, I've got to drive down the road, potholes in every street. It's like, isn't that your responsibility? What's it to do with you about Gaza? What's it to do you about Trump tariffs or anything like that? None of your responsibility. Trade isn't your responsibility. Fixing the potholes should be number one priority, for example. But it's not. They're off in a jolly to New York. But even worse, they chose Alan Cumming to do it now. Alan Cumming, who was recently seen at calling Nicola Sturgeon a legend, if you remember from a few weeks ago. Imagine calling Nicola Sturgeon, of all people, a legend. Anyway, Cumming decided it'd be a great time to criticise his hosts. Speaking before the event, he criticised the Trump administration for tanking the economy and not looking after the people they said they were going to look after who voted for them. The only people I think are benefiting, he said, are the 1%, the billionaires, the oligarchs. There's not much of a silver lining. Meanwhile, in the real world, the majority of US citizens support Trump's tariffs, saying that they want to, you know, get jobs back in their own country instead of being in China. According to Daily Mail, his popularity is up from 49% to 53%. But apparently, to Cumming, that wasn't all he was. He decided to make this event all into something about his protest against Trump and something to do with being gay. He says, "I think this is my protest. By the very nature of celebrating something, you say you're proud of it, you think this is great. Ironically, we're celebrating all the things we have in Scotland. And alas, those are the things that are not here in America. And people are protesting to get them. So this is my form of protest, having joy about walking the streets of New York right now, still being able to be free and queer and alive." And he talks a whole lot about transgender people, and you're like, what's
representing Scotland
to do with anything? He says nothing. How are you being oppressed if you're leading a parade in a kilt, right? Yeah. In the middle of one of the biggest cities in America? And how is that oppression and be able to spout whatever you like? I mean, really, what, David, any of this could do with Scotland? What's the point of this? What's the point of Alan Cumming?
Well, I don't get it at all, to be honest. And that has absolutely nothing to do with Scotland. That little outburst, no idea where he was going with that at all. So trans rights, no problem at all with trans rights in Scotland. Then great, if that's what you're saying. Okay, so can we stop pandering to the trans community in that case if everything's so great? If you wouldn't mind, that would be great. But you remember, these clowns, and I'm talking about Swinney, so they're not ambassadors for any country. They're not ambassadors for any cause, and nor are they missionaries. They don't have any right at all going over there and lecturing Americans how they should live. It's ridiculous. And if Scotland was in any way as wonderful as Cumming claims, he wouldn't have to eke out a career as a self-parodying reality TV host in an American version of a UK show, would he? Frankly,
Wow.
so it's just laughable.
Very good. He did mention Scotland, though, saying that the festivities were a celebration of Scottish legacy, culture, and what was the other one here? Freedoms. Right. Really, what is
Scottish
lacking?
freedoms.
That's what's lacking in America these days, apparently. Legacy, culture, and freedoms.
Has he not heard of the hate crime bill?
Well, that's the point. That's what I was just about to say, Mary.
Yeah.
He's say the US has freedom of speech. We have criminalised speech here in the form of the hate bill. The US has a culture of attainment. Scotland has one of, it seems, failure.
Yep.
And legacy. And this is kind of important because legacy. I think legacy is created now. People in the future, people will say that we're the legacy, right?
Yeah.
Right. And what are they going to say about the legacy nationalists have left us? Cumming's legacy is to call a woman who destroyed services in Scotland a legend, a woman who claimed to be a feminist and let rapists into women's prisons, and who didn't know that her husband was embezzling money from the party she ran. It's just not a serious position, is it?
I wonder if Cummings got his expenses all paid and who
Of
paid
course
for
he
them
did.
expenses.
So
The taxpayers are paying for him to go out there
Yep.
and basically have again another jolly. Our money shouldn't be wasted on people like that who are trying to break up the UK.
Right.
You know, I want our money spent in Scotland on Scottish issues. It's just I just don't understand. And New York and how many other tartan weeks have we got in all over the world that Angus Robinson suddenly come up with? You know, we're finding tartan week everywhere, and it's not as if these countries even will even
actually,
have a clue what they are.
I was just thinking about this because in many towns or cities in America, they have Highland Games. We used to go to the Sarasota Highland Games. It was quite a big deal, this thing. It was quite commercialised in the sense that I think these Highland Games might actually travel around the country.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of these guys wearing what they call utility kilts. You know, you've seen those ones. They're like leather kilts with pockets for hammers and stuff like that. But a lot of guys wearing that type of stuff, and they had the full Highland Games, and thousands of people were there, more probably than were even at that event there.
And do you remember the school next to us? What was it called? Brook something or other?
Riverview.
Riverview. They had a huge pipe band.
Yeah.
One of the best in America.
So there is a Scottish culture there. I mean, definitely, but it's not the problem I have. Of course, what we want Scottish culture to be out. You know, if I was a Yorkshireman, I'd want Yorkshire culture to be out as well, whatever it is.
Yep.
But we don't want it politicised in this way. We want people to say, "Come, have a good time in Scotland, and you can drink Scotch, and you can go and hunt for haggis." All this type of stuff, right? And what they're doing is they're going over and saying, "We don't like Trump," and what about the gays?
Yep.
It's like, that's not what it's about. It's not so. Don't be so narcissistic about the thing. It's like it's supposed to be about Scotland, not about you, Mr. Cumming. That's the thing. I think. What's this here, David? Say, what do you think of this ungratefulness?
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just so many people did this back in the 60s during Vietnam. You had guys like John Lennon going out there and basically lecturing Americans and saying how bad Nixon was and everything. It's got nothing to do with you. Stay out of it. You're a visitor in the country, for goodness sake. But the Americans must be sick of listening to it as much as I am. And I think all of these guys, these kind of lovies who spend a lot of time over there, who are all Scottish nationalist hangers-on like Irvine Welsh and Brian Cox and Martin Compston and Cumming, of course, they'll all be judged very poorly by history. And you can see whenever the SNP does finally fold, they'll all be desperate to get back into the mainstream of representation of Scotland, rather than this particularly narrow nonsense that they always espouse, which is all about Scottish nationalism and also these ridiculously identity-driven policies. And it's just, nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear a single word. Nobody cares, literally, what Alan Cumming thinks. And I think once the SNP is done, you'll see them all squirming to get back in and to talk up America and how wonderful it is, unlike they are right now. It's ridiculous, to be honest.
Well, I think it is that idea, the conflation of the Scottish nationalism and Scottish identity on an international stage, I think is a real problem. It's like, just leave it alone for a little bit, right?
Yep.
Now, we got our favourite correspondent, Kenny Farquharson, from the Times Appeasement Division, said that the UK government and Scottish government should work together on the event. Kenny said, here we go. Imagine for a moment you're an American industrialist toying with building a high-tech facility in a brownfield site in Glasgow. I don't know why. But anyway, you approach the Secretary of State for Scotland at a UK government event in New York. You have questions. There might be a planning issue, you say. Can you advise me on that, Mr. Murray? No. I'll have to speak to the Scottish Government, says Mr. Murray. Are they here? No. Okay, whatever. And this, to me, is exactly the problem. The Scottish Government itself is a barrier to investment in Scotland. International businesses have to deal with two legislative bodies, one of which, the Scottish one, doesn't want to work with the other one, so they'll make it any easier. So if if the UK government comes and says, here's this big company they want in fact, they do that. Nuclear power is a good example. They say, we want more nuclear power and investment in Scotland. What do the SNP do? Oh, no, we'll use planning restrictions so it won't happen as well. And it says, I wrote here, can you imagine the US businesses dealing with utter idiots in the Scottish Parliament? We don't have to imagine. This is the point. We all saw what happened with the ferries. We all saw what happened with Lorna Slater's bottle deposit return scheme or whatever it is. And, and on top of that, we've got a whole thing of the uncertainty of breaking away from the UK. So these people are doing it. It's just the whole thing is doing us a disservice. Mark, you think this? I mean, if you put yourself in the place, say, of a person wanting to invest in Scotland, I mean, is that a good deal? Listening to John Swinney?
No, because the one thing that businesses and companies and billionaires and that look for is a country that's stable, which is a country that's you can invest in and you know where you're going to be in 5 years. Now, the UK as a whole is a really good place to invest in because we have a stable government system. We have the pound, which is a stable currency. But if you're looking and thinking, well, we may have a referendum in 3 years in Scotland and they may break away from the UK, I'm not going to invest in Scotland if they're not going to be part of the UK, because a new country to invest in, it's too risky. We'll put our money somewhere else. Now, if they promoted it properly, Scotland as part of the UK, Scotland is a great place to invest. But
we used to get that in the old days, the Silicon Glen or whatever it was. Moment.
There's far too much uncertainty, especially around the Scottish government with the policies that they bring in, especially on businesses. They attack businesses. The SNP don't like businesses. They seem to run businesses down. They think, So I don't think I personally, if I was a billionaire and I was looking to invest in a country, I would say Scotland, no, London, yes. Without a doubt.
Maybe some other region of the UK. That's more stable.
Certainly wouldn't think. I would think twice about Scotland.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get.
No, that's right.
And look at the tax as well.
Yeah, the tax is a big issue. They'll tax anything that makes any money, and they'll ban anything that they don't like. So, what are you going to do? Can you imagine? I mean, look at California, right? California has, think of all the tech companies in California. Why do they have them all there instead of having them all here? Right, that's a question that people should be asking, and it's just not being asked because the first thing is like, oh no, we don't like the billionaires, we don't like Elon Musk, we don't like that. We don't. That's where it comes from. They don't even want to talk at that level. Instead of thinking, get Elon Musk here. He can build a battery factory. You can put programmers here for whatever. Maybe make bits for rockets. Whatever. Do whatever you can do. But they wouldn't. You're not even at that level.
No, they hate successful business people.
They
think there's something bad about them if they actually make money, if the business makes money.
I think that's just, to some extent that's a UK thing as well. But beyond that, I think Scotland is particularly it's entrenched in the actual government as well. Thank you very much for your donation. Thank you for your kind comments as well. Yes, we will still be doing billboards and so on
and campaigns and social media.
We will just be mainly doing. We will still be doing social media. And that's mainly what we'll be doing. We're not going to do much in the emails for right now. So that's great. Thank you for your donation as well and for kind of support. Yeah, someone will send in a FOI request for that, I think. Anyway, next up, in addition to all the above, we're going to ask, what's the point of a legislative body that can't make decent laws? Back in a second with that. Right, this may be us actually ourselves a little bit. This may be our last show, but we will continue to fight in social media and in campaigns such as our infamous or famous billboard campaigns. The elections coming up, we will need to concentrate on those. If you do value our work or have valued it, or just want to say thank you, that'd be great. Please do donate. Every donation, big or small, helps power our fight against toxic nationalism. You can donate here in on YouTube with the super chat, super thanks, as we just saw a second ago, or you can go to our website, and there's a donation button on every page, which currently goes to the chat bot, but you can just put any donations in there. And it all goes to the same place in the end. So we hope to power forward into 2026 elections. Now, back to the news. The SNP government is planning to shelve Nicola Sturgeon's promise to criminalise misogyny in Scotland over fears it could provoke a new culture war and lead up to the Holyrood elections. Sturgeon promised radical legislation aimed at creating wide-ranging protections for women and girls from male verbal abuse and intimidation. The proposed act would make it illegal for men to loudly discuss sexual conquests in public, watch pornography where others can see it, or shout abusive comments at women in the street. It's also proposed creating an offence of stirring up hatred against women. I was kind of wondering about this when I was reading it. I said, so would it mean calling a woman a fatty on the street would be fine, but calling her a fat cow would get you charged with misogyny? I don't know how that would work. And that's the point, I think. These laws are ambiguously framed and are arbitrarily applied, and it's almost certainly targeted against people who are against the government. But in any case, it's been dumped. One SNP backbencher said, I don't think we'll be saying hide nor hair of it again. How can we legislate to criminalise misogyny when we can't even agree on what a woman is? David.
Well, I mean, these laws are just a string of unfit for purpose botches, complete, nowhere near good enough. Bad laws, poorly conceived, appallingly presented, should never be anywhere near the statute book. This goes right back to laws like the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act, the biggest joke of any attempted piece of legislation since the dawn of the evolution. Just an absolute disgrace. Now, these just, to me, provide a horrifying glimpse of what life in Scotland would be like if the nationalists ever did succeed in breaking up the UK. Bad laws proposed by inadequates and voted on by incompetents who don't really know what they're voting for, which is why so many of the opposition MSPs voted for the GRR bill, only to say, I didn't realise it was this bad. Really? Did you know? Of course. They were so keen to be on the right side of history and against the Tories. Pathetic. All of it. This can't be allowed to go on. Along with, of course, this fake confusion over what a woman is. And what an absolute joke. Misogyny. What's a woman? I don't know. Right. Okay. Great. No, not good enough. Nowhere near.
Well, could you see? I mean, have the misogyny applied to trans women? Then I mean,
I'm certain that's probably why she's done it.
That's what it's for, right? Isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah,
that's really the thing.
So if you see somebody and you say, you can't shove your tranny off a bus or something. How dare you misgender me?
I'm going to report you.
There you go. Exactly. I'm sure that's behind it. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. You know, Sturgeon is not. Did I put that post? Did I put the thing up? That was her there. That was her there. Our comedy, in our comedy career, which is, it's no joke for the rest of us. Anyway, increasingly, we're seeing commentators follow our lead and asking, what is the point of a regional parliament that makes laws so bad they have to be constantly reversed?
Quite.
From the named person scheme of offensive, I can't even say that, offensive behaviour at football matches?
That's exactly. It's the OBFA, Offensive Behaviour at Football Act, yes.
Right, okay. That one, to Lawrence Leiter's disastrous deposit return scheme, to Humza's hate crime bill, which actually that get through. But I mean, but probably will be reversed at some point. Gender recognition reform bill also stopped in its tracks. Nationalist ideologues have attempted to diminish Scots' freedoms so they can get virtue signalling headlines, usually at the expense of the UK government. But we don't need a parliament that makes bad laws. All we need is a way to get money from the UK government to local authorities. That's it. That's really all that we actually need. And what's happening instead is that the Scottish government is taking the money and power for itself instead of putting it to local authorities. So what we're getting is a talking shop full of people that are taking money away from actual services, taking
Yep.
attention away from services, and taking power away from local authorities instead. Now, when so I mean, surely it's time to stop this nonsense. It really is just there's more and more people seeing it, I think, now are saying, what is the point of this? It's, I know, even beyond that, is what has it brought us? It brought us Alex Salmond, Nicola Sturgeon, Humza Yousaf, and John Swinney gave a platform to divisive nationalists to use the power of government, power and funding of government to try and put Scots against Scots so that they can get more power. That's just wrong in the face of it.
Quite.
Mark, is it time for a referendum to abolish Holyrood?
It's time for one, but we're not going to be seeing one for I don't think we'll see one for a long time, but I do think it is time for one. I think there's more and more people coming around to the idea that this is just not working as it's meant to work. Something has to change. Even the Conservatives and even Labour and a lot of the other parties are saying we've got to reform Parliament because it is not working for the people. It really isn't. There's, like as you say, bad laws, billions and billions of pounds that could go to vital services are being wasted on that building and on that Parliament. We're seeing the First Minister questions, and it's embarrassing. You're seeing, they're actually holding things up and reading the question out and the answer, and then you're seeing the First Minister saying, well, I don't want to answer the Conservative question because I don't like it. They're basically having and that to me is absolutely it's a joke, that building now. Something has to happen. It has to be reformed. In the short term, it has to be reformed.
At the minimum,
it works better for the people. In the long term, we do need a referendum and to have it closed because I don't like devolution. I've never liked devolution, not just in Scotland, but the whole of the UK, Wales, Manchester mayor, London mayor, all these mayors that are popping up. It's too much. We need, it takes the power away from where it's meant to be, and that's Westminster and the Parliament that runs the country. That's Westminster. And one thing we need to do is get rid of this idea that this is a government. That was the worst decision I think we've seen in a long time, is making it a government. It's an administration. It should never have been allowed to be called a government because it gives them a status of, well, we are a separate country from the rest of the UK because we are a government. They're not a government. They're an administration, devolved administration with certain powers, and that's all it is. And that's all it should have been, and which it was meant to be in the first place.
Well, that's the thing. It's supposed to bring services closer to people. In fact, it's put them further away. I'm just going to answer a question Alan Jack has put in here. He says, I'd love to see Holyrood abolished, but didn't they pass a law saying Holyrood would be permanent? Well, it's in the Scotland Act to say that it's permanent, but it can be it also says that the only way to get rid of it is through a referendum of Scottish people. There's a misapprehension that the referendum would have to be organised by the Scottish Parliament. If that was the case, then the Scottish Parliament wouldn't vote to abolish itself unless we had some really quite interesting people in there who were at the party that was interested in doing that. It's highly unlikely. But the way it's most likely to work is that a UK party, listening to the people of Scotland, says, if we get into power, we will offer a referendum to Scots on their future, with a referendum on that. Now, I think before any of that happens, what we should have is a constitutional convention. The SNP and Nationalists are always talking about constitutional convention. What we're going to do when Scotland is independent. Now, what we should be doing is like a constitutional convention for now to actually improve what is going on and what are all the different variations going from abolition right through to reforming the system. And I think we should have those on the table, and there should be an honest discussion about that, because quite clearly the Scottish Parliament is not working for the Scottish people, and it has not worked for a long time for us. David, just any final words on this wee bit?
Well, I think you're quite right. I mean, it hasn't worked for us for a long time. I think it's going nowhere right now, and I can't see any real future for it. The only problem is, guys, abolishing Holyrood is such a harsh step, if you like, and it was voted in, devolution was voted in quite substantially in Scotland. So it's a difficult one. But what I would say, that notwithstanding, anytime anyone asks for a second independence referendum, I think the answer should be, well, let's, as we can see, it's not really working. Why don't we have a second devolution referendum first, and so establish whether or not we want devolution? So
I'm a little bit wary of. I know you're not saying this, but I'm a little bit wary of people saying, okay. In fact, I answered someone yesterday. They said, right, we'll have a dual referendum,
no.
if it goes, either it's independence or abolishing the Scottish Parliament. Those are two separate things. And first of all, you already had your chance. And you lost. That's it. You're not getting another chance. What we're talking about here is actually making Scotland better. And I think that I'm not saying a Trump figure. I'm saying something like a strident politician with very clear policy ideas could quite easily push this discussion forward, and sadly we don't have anyone like that, and it's a big disappointment to me that Reform, for all their bluster, they have not taken this bull by the horns, really, and showed that they showed true leadership on this issue. That's not. It may come up in the future. Who knows? May not. But that's it. Okay, right. Be back in a few seconds. Dave is going to talk about his pet subject. Okay, right. This one. First of all, thank you for us on this, which is our final show. As you see, we're going through all the news. A little bit later, we're going to do the ultimate Zoomer, and we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences in the show. But first, David is up.
Well, people, no surprises for guessing my chosen subject, as it's the last show for now anyway. Yes, that's right. It's next year's Holyrood election and the likely outcome. Now, as you may have gathered in recent weeks, I am rather fearful, and for those of you who follow me on social media, you'll certainly have seen this. The reason being, of course, after last year when the Scotland's pro-UK anti-nationalist majority helped to successfully rid Westminster of as many as 39 SNP MPs, I'm afraid the outlook for Holyrood 2026 is looking a little bit gloomy for our side, so to speak. Let's not forget the fledgling Labour government has made an utterly bizarre start to the parliamentary term with very highly controversial policies, extremely poorly presented, and seemingly not a single ounce of political nous in anybody in the party. Continuing yesterday with Jess Phillips, that champion of abused women, saying, no, we won't bother with the inquiries we promised into grooming gangs. Oh, God, right, okay. Honestly, is there a single promise they haven't broken? So, as a result, partly of all of this, the SNP has gained some ground in polling. The Scottish Conservatives continue to struggle. I think that's highlighted by the fact that in what is possibly Scotland's most what's the word for a seat where it could go either way? What do you call that again? What's
a swing?
It was a borderline, or whatever it is. One of the, I've forgotten that the adjective was going right out of my head, but we'll come back to me. Anyway, it could go any way. It could go anyone.
A contested seat?
It's the highly contested. There is an adjective for it. I'll get there. What is it again? Never mind. This is
okay, right. Just go on. Moving on.
It's not a swing seat, no.
It's something like that, yeah. Anyway, which is Eastwood or East Renfrew. Eastwood it is. They've picked Jackson Carlaw.
I was wondering about that. It seems a strange choice.
I mean, look at what happened last year. Any one of three parties can win. They're SNP, Labour, or Conservative. Last year, the Conservatives picked Sandesh Gohani. Now, the thing that links Sandesh Gohani with Jackson Carlaw is they're two of only three Conservative MSPs to have voted for the GRR bill. So last year, the only party that fielded a candidate who'd voted for the GRR bill was the Conservative Party. And you just think, What is wrong with you people? Seriously, now they've repeated the dose in the same place. It's incredible. So they're struggling. But most worryingly of all, the looming presence of reform in Scotland. Marginal is the name. Marginal seat. Sorry, guys.
Oh yes, very good, very good. You got it eventually.
Different side of my brain.
Oh, that was some woman's name, Marginal.
Exactly, good old Margie. Yeah, exactly. So we know that Reform plans to field a candidate in every constituency in Scotland. Do you know, guys, does anybody know the last time that a party outside the top four won a constituency seat in Holyrood? Anybody guess? Have a guess.
Aside from independence.
So anybody who wasn't, that type of thing. So you've got like, if it's not Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem or SNP. When was the last time, last election, that anybody outside those four won a constituency seat? 2003. Never. 2003 is the answer, right? It was one, I think one was Dennis Canavan and another was some socialist party or other. Anyway, that's it. Small parties, start-up parties do not win constituency seats, and Reform won't win any next year either. I know some people disagree with me, but I'm right, guys, believe me. So in 2021, let's not forget, the SNP won 62 of the constituency seats and came second in the other 11, which gave them 85% of the seats with 49% of the vote, which meant the three main pro-UK parties with a bit more than 50% of the vote won 15% of the seats. The SNP is now polling down from 49 to about 35%, and we know that 25 of their constituency MSPs have already said they're standing down, and God bless her, Christine McKelvey died, which is very sad, so just want to mention that. It's a shame. Anyway, she was one of the people who said she was standing down. So what that means is several well-known SNP figures will be replaced by comparatively or totally unknown youngsters, which would give us a great chance of removing them from office ordinarily. But instead of making the advantage count, we now have to factor in a fourth pro-UK party, which is growing in popularity, but not growing enough to even win a single seat. And they're going to stand everywhere. Guys, this is political lunacy. Really, it will end. If this carries on and if Reform's vote holds up, and they do indeed stand in every constituency, the SNP will win, guys. I guarantee it. And if that happens, anyone, as I said earlier, who imagines the SNP will not immediately turn this a mandate for independence is guilty of very delusional wishful thinking.
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? That basically that they'll just say, even with their, it won't be a big vote share, but they'll go on with this. Oh yes, well this means a mandate and all that. But let's face reality. The Labour government is not going to give them a referendum.
No, it's not.
So it's going to. They'll have to decide: are they going to continue the agitation, the SNP, that is, which is most likely. But they'll have to remember as well that was work for them. You know, continuing ramping up the agitation, not working with the UK government, isn't necessarily a good strategy for them. A better strategy for them is to actually kind of work with them on many of the issues and show that they're more credible for government.
Sure,
but they'll be. I mean, even you say it just seeps out of them. This thing of the Tartan week, it's the same thing. We're a proud, strong nation, and all this type of stuff. You're like, okay, fine, but it's just always they're always on it. They're always at it, right? And they're just going to be at it as a government for a while as well. And if they win, assuming they win, I mean, there's a potential for Labour to improve its ratings. I don't know.
Without question. I mean, a couple of guys, one guy was saying to me today, come on, why are you being so anxious? Why are you being so fearful? I am fearful. I'm very fearful of what will happen if they do win a fifth consecutive term. And with Reform, and remember, I'm not anti-Reform. I totally get the point of Reform. I think they will have their day. It won't be next year, though. It really won't. But what I would say is if it so happened that the SNP's number of constituency seats went up from 62, that would almost certainly give them a majority, because you only need, 65 to get a majority anyway. They were only one short with 64 last time, and 62 of them were constituencies. They've got to be stopped in the constituencies, guys, because that's where we're strongest. And
it seems highly unlikely that Reform will back down. It's just not.
It's personal self-interest.
They don't really care.
They don't care.
They don't care about that. And perhaps if I was a Reform person, maybe I wouldn't care as well. They just say, well, it's your fault because your parties are rubbish. Right. But that's not the objective. The thing is we've got an objective here. When the objective is to keep the SNP down because there's bigger problems. I don't mind if people should, if they said, look, vote for Reform as second vote.
Yep.
Right.
People
would have no problem with that, I think. But this is right.
Exactly right. And this is the thing. We've got to be smart about voting here. So many people, let's face it, with great respect, So many people simply don't understand the Scottish election voting system. And everyone talks about the DeHont system. It's not even pronounced that, for God's sake. It's pronounced don't, as in don't, for fuck's sake, vote for the SNP, you know. So that's the thing. People don't get this idea of if you vote the same party twice, you cannot get the power of both votes. It's impossible. You can't do it. But people will say, I'm voting Reform both votes. Oh my God, we have to go through this again, guys. Anyway, I'll happily do it. But that's the problem we've got. There genuinely is a role for Reform to play in several regions, but not in any constituencies. In several regions on the list, yes, they can win seats. They can win seats in South Scotland, Central Scotland, West Scotland, Glasgow, Mid-Fife.
And I don't think it would be so bad if we had a firm commitment from the Reform itself at the top level. I'm not talking about some guy who we never see on social media or anywhere, the Martin, whatever his name, Green. We barely know.
Yep.
Well, I'm talking about Farage and so making proper commitment, but it just doesn't feel right, you know.
It just looks like they're not taking it very seriously, and they're desperately just seeking vote share. And it also seems, as I've mentioned before, that some of our ex-colleagues who are now standing for Reform have gone in the space of 4 years from wanting to maximise the number of pro-UK constituency MSPs to minimising the number of pro-UK constituency MSPs, in fact, eradicating them altogether. And that benefits one party and one party only. And that's the party that either came first in 62 seats or second in the other 11 seats the last time. This really is...
I do think as well, though, we have to consider polling. The polling is saying certain things that, Reform will split the vote and that Labour is depressed at the moment, whatever. I mean, I think that the idea that people are really going to go back to the SNP as a better way to run Scotland than going for something new. I think there's an argument there for Labour to say to come in and say, look, you've had this. Look at this disaster. All this hasn't. And if they have been quite smart in they were smart in their general election strategy for Scotland. Whether they can replicate that in the Scottish elections, it's a different matter.
It is a different matter. And I have to say, some of the conversations I've had with Labour, they're not despondent at all, Labour. They're not thinking this is all over. And they're right, they've got over a year. They can still pull it round. I don't think they feel they're being particularly helped by what's happening in Westminster, and I think they're right there. But the last thing I would say is this is the last opportunity. I'll have to say this for some time. I can see a few of the guys are saying we should come back to this next year, and I agree with that. I'm sure we will.
We probably should have specials.
Indeed. But at the moment, there's very little point in me lecturing anybody about which way you should vote. I mean, there isn't. It's a year out for a start. Anything can happen in a year. But all I would say is, guys, remember, as Mark said there, the purpose of this whole setup is that we are anti-nationalists. We want to get the SNP out. That's the focus. That's the priority. I spent several months, along with a lot of other very clever people, telling people the best way to vote if you want to beat the SNP candidate. And it worked. It worked in 48 constituencies out of 57 last year, and it damn nearly worked in the other 9 as well. And some of them not closer than others, but it could have worked in all the other 9 also. Next year, it will work again if you stay disciplined. Focus on the priority, which is getting the SNP candidate out. Do you like the guy who wins? Doesn't matter. Is he better than the SNP? Yes, he is. Absolutely every time. However bad he is, he's still better than the SNP. So don't falter. Remember what happened last year and remember what can happen again next year, and just stay focused. That's all it will take. There you go.
I think that Labour has been very poor at presenting their actual successes as well. I mean, there are some in there somewhere. That's the thing. We have to dig deep to find them. Anyway, right. Okay, very good. Mark, you're doing the next section, so we'll if you want to comment on this, we'll do that at that point there. T-shirt message says, look, so I'll get these T-shirts going at the majority. Look at that. It's beautiful, actually. It's good. A great fit as well. Nice material.
Lovely.
Very good. From the Majority shop, you can go there and you can buy that, plus other goods like Majority T-shirts and mugs, hats, and mouse pad even as well, which I should probably get one of those mouse pads too. They're pretty nifty. Anyway, there is a wee coupon you can use to do that, and a little bit from the sale of anything goes towards supporting, not just says you're supporting the show, but supporting our
the majority
fight against nationalism. Right, we're back in a few seconds. Mark Zegfeld is going to talk about voter apathy, which kind of ties in a little bit to what David was saying. I was almost saying Derek again. Right, I'll get back in a second. Right, Mark, you're up.
Yes, it goes on from what David was saying about the election, but my big issue at this stage, and I agree with David. I think later on, tactical voting will come into it heavily. But my big issue at the moment and my big worry is voter apathy, because voter apathy, if it's a low turnout, the SNP will be in power in 2026. There's no doubt about that. And I'll tell you why. They could sit back, the SNP, do no campaigning whatsoever, keep their mouth shut and do nothing, and they will still guarantee themselves 30, even if a lower voter numbers, they will still guarantee themselves round about 30%. Let's say 29, 30%. With a low turnout, that's enough to get them back into power.
Yeah.
We need to get people voting. We need to get people out and voting. Now, in the UK, the general election was an extremely low turnout, and we got a huge majority for Labour. And it's been a thing for over the last few general elections and Holyrood elections. People are sick and tired of politicians, and they're saying, I'm done. I'm not voting for anybody. I don't like the SNP. I don't like Labour. I can't vote Conservative, so I'm just not going to vote. And if that carries on in 2026, they will have a smaller minority because they've got a minority government, but it will be a small amount, but they will be in power. We have to get people voting and interested in the politics again. We've got to start doing this because we see what we're seeing, and it goes on from what what we're seeing now. During the general election, it worked really well. Everyone worked together, and we thought, right then, let's put the politics aside at the moment. Let's get rid of the SNP out of Westminster and let's tactical vote. And it worked. It worked really well. The issue was Labour government have come in and been an absolute disaster. And people are now turning around saying, I'm not going to vote Labour. Never, never, never again. Right. I'm not going to do tactical voting ever again because it didn't work because we ended up with disaster. The thing is, it was never about Labour being in government because they were always going to win that election, no matter what Scotland did. It was all about getting rid of the SNP. And we have to start this mindset of, well, we've got to do it again to get rid of the SNP. And no matter who wins, whether it's Labour, and if you don't like, I don't like Labour. I don't like Labour one little bit. But I know for a fact they will be 10 times better than what we've got now.
Well, it wouldn't even matter if they were 10 times better. They just need to. The whole point. The whole point is that
they're not nationalists.
They're not nationalists. They're not wanting to break up our country. That's the basic part of it, right?
And that's the point. And I think they'll be a lot better in government than what the SNP are anyway. Because even with all the
single issue voters,
So anyone would better. And I think we can hold Labour more accountable in Scotland than we can with the SNP. We can't hold them accountable. They don't really care. They don't give a damn what the Scottish people think. As long as they get the 29-30% vote and they start banging on about independence, that's all they're bothered about. I think Labour might listen more to us, to the general public, if they were a government. Now, so we have to, but we do have to get people voting because a low turnout, I think it kills us. It really does. It really, no matter, even if we tactically voted with a low turnout, we will lose that election. And there's no doubt about it. And we'll have an SNP in, and they could even win it on 27, 28% of the vote.
That's true.
Quite easily.
Very true.
With a low turnout. So
it's going to be really hard to motivate people to go out and vote.
Well, certainly we can help with billboard campaigns and so on, and social media, and start to say, look, and the thing that really needs to help is, in most cases, is for Labour to be more credible and to present themselves better in what's going on here, and to understand the risk that's coming up. The other part is if we could actually get Reform to listen and say that what the issue is here. I don't have any issue, and as we said, any issue with Reform, doing well or whatever. Of course, it's great, but we can't have them breaking up splitting the vote in the constituencies. It's just
It is the fault of the opposition. We can do as much as we can do, and all we can do is to get people to vote. But we need the opposition out there. Who's campaigning for 2026 at the moment? All I can see is the SNP campaigning.
Yes, the
social media are out there already.
Pushing the baby box all these past few days.
They're pushing
How far can you push a baby box?
And they're pushing the independence vote. They're trying to get the independence voters back on side again. But where are the Conservatives? Where's Labour? Where's the Liberals? Where is the opposition? Why are they not campaigning at the moment?
What I'd actually like to see is the Reform people actually have a leader for Reform in Scotland being criticised for, or not questioned, I should say, not around criticised, questioned on this particular issue, and to feel and to understand the anger that many people have. We worked all this time, right, to get the SNP down, and they're going to resurrect them for what? So that they can say, "Oh, we got an extra 2% in the vote," or something like that, or whatever it is. That they would get in the list vote anyway. They get the result in the list vote, right?
I think Russell Findlay started well as a Conservative leader. I think his policies were great. I liked what he was saying, and I liked the way he was saying, "Well, we're not going to discuss independence. We're not going to fall for that trap anymore. We're going to stick to the policies." But I want to hear more from him. I want to see Russell going on shows like this show.
I know. Well, we didn't invite
us his opinions.
We invited him.
Yeah, I'd like to see him out there talking about the public services, the austerity we're seeing, why and what they would do to improve Scotland. We're not hearing enough of that, and that's gonna get people motivated. If you've got a leader who's out there who's telling us, well, this is what I'm going to do for Scotland, and this is what my party's going to do. If you vote for us, we are going to do this. We're going to end austerity. We're going to put money back into the public services. We're going to sort the health service out, and this is how we're going to do it. That will get people thinking, well, yeah, I quite like that. I'm quite interested.
Well, that's the job, isn't it? I mean, that's what they should be doing,
of course.
No, we're not hearing it. It is a difficult situation, so we can only do what we can to make people aware of what the situation is, and to try and motivate them to get rid of this, as I say, toxic nationalism that is strangling Scotland's potential. Right. Thanks, Mark, for that segment. Indeed. Now we're close to the end. Only the ultimate Zoomer has to come. So we thought we'd take a moment and we would chat about our favourite events of the past 3 years. So for me, getting the show, I'll start with me. Why not? Getting the show was a major challenge. Took a lot of research and trying to figure it out. It was quite rocky at the start for those of you who were with us.
It's been rocky a few times in the middle as well.
Yes, indeed. Big thanks to Niall Fraser, who was host in many of those early shows.
Yep.
Eventually we did settle into a groove. But for me, I think the main highlight is not so much the show itself. It's been really great to do the show. But that it allowed me to get on to Talk TV. Something I didn't expect, actually, was that I would go on to Talk TV and discuss Scottish politics from an anti-nationalist perspective, which you very rarely see on various shows. I was on with Dan Wooten one time. I told off Julia Hartley-Brewer for saying that England should let Scotland go. Really, do you want Sturgeon to win and break up the UK? I mean, it's just a daft idea. I told James Melville that his own support for nationalism was what caused a disastrous state of Scottish politics around him. Didn't like that too much. And I was able to tell Alex Salmond to his face that the Scottish Parliament was full of grifters, gropers, and no-hopers. Now, I never expected to be able to talk to Alex Salmond, or have a shouting match with him. But why not? Let's have a look at that again.
A wider issue, really. I mean, do the people of Scotland really want to have a bunch of grifters and no-hopers and gropers in the Parliament?
You've been very hard on Scottish parliamentarians, for goodness sake, Mark.
Come on.
Is it the waste of money, or the fact that you just don't like them?
Do you mind not interrupting me when I'm speaking?
What's the debate, Mark?
You've got 3 hours to talk on this show to put forward your wishful thinking ideas that basically came to an end in 2014. 2014. And other people, you know, the majority of Scots, you ignored them for so many years. Your protege, Nicola Sturgeon, ignored us. We won the 2014 referendum, okay? And you have no path forward from here.
But
And the
Mark,
people of Scotland
you've been
want this,
arguing, the SNP have won 14 out of the last 15 elections in Scotland, despite your best efforts. Are you saying that now you think you've discovered the secret formula when independence is at 48%? You think you can turn back the time?
39%.
It's 49%. I'm sorry, I'm underestimating independence. Now 49%.
39% in the polls.
Oh no, in the last two polls, 48%. Yesterday's poll, today's poll. Let's say it's 50-50.
It's just wishful thinking, Alex.
It's not wishful thinking. It's a
path
poll.
Anyway, enough of that. That's enough of that. So anyway, I enjoyed. I mean, it was quite tough going up against, the now deceased Alex Salmond. But you know, that's what you do. I never expected to do that. I'm just a guy. Started a wee show here and brought some friends on to do it. But more than that, I suppose I am happy that we were able to make the great team, David, Mark, Mary, and to hear all your comments every week. So thank you all for giving us the opportunity to do that. So that's mine. Let's see, David, what was your highlight?
Well, I mean, I would just say, I wasn't going to say this. I actually, through working with you guys, I was additionally invited on to Talk TV 4 times. The lovely Claudia Liza interviewed me twice, Johnny Goulden, and also Mike Graham did. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. They were all very, very supportive, which was great. So that huge thanks for giving me that opportunity, which was great. But I mean, for me, guys, I mean, Mystic DG, the legend was born when I predicted the imminent resignation of Sturgeon, being widely ridiculed, guys. If you remember, a lot of people said, "Oh, they're rubbish," and a lot of people said, "Really, is this going to happen?" And by sheer chance, it did, wasn't it great? And I became pretty much the first person to call it. And then I went on to get the other of the 4 big Sturgeon predictions all correct, including, of course, the break up of our marriage. So I am very, very pleased to have been able to do that. I was also very honoured to be the recipient of several stories from people who realised that I would get stories out there, coming to me saying, "Look, have you heard about this? Like the chief constable using her one of her beat bobbies as a personal taxi to drive her home to Durham or something from Edinburgh." Absolute nonsense. And I was the person who broke that story and gave it to the Sun because one of my sources gave it to me. Amazing just to see the way that this works, and the system actually does work. If people come to you and you have a platform, the press will pick up on it and they will print the story. Great. I really enjoyed that. And several other stories I was told, which will hopefully prove to be true in time. And of course, guys, probably my most proud contribution to the debate in Scotland was last year when, along with a couple of other commentators, there weren't many of us though, we predicted, they correctly predicted the lead pro-UK candidate in all 57 Westminster seats. 9 second places to the SNP, and it should have been fewer rather, and 48 wins. Now that's pretty damn good.
Yes, that's very good.
We recommended it, and it happened. So easily the highlight of my time, and to share that on here, brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. And of course, the election night special where I celebrated my local candidate's win with an unforgettable.
That's right, but I don't have that right to hand. So, but yes, that's a good impression of yourself.
Yes, true. Yeah, I remember
that. Very good. Right.
It's been great. It's been absolutely great. So I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it, guys.
Thank you. Mark, what's your remembrance?
First of all, it was being asked to come on this show and co-host. I think that was a great honour for me to come on here. I've really, really enjoyed it. And you can. I didn't realise how much hard work you guys put in before this show goes out. So my hat's off to you, because I just turn up with my piece of paper and just talk. You guys, the work you guys do behind the scenes, it's been a joy to watch. My highlight was definitely the election night special. That was great fun. It really was. We had a great. How many hours did we do? I think
seven or something.
7 or 8 hours.
Probably from about 11.
I think we'll
11 till 6.
We'll definitely do one of those for
it was
Scottish election.
and it was fantastic, and it was a fantastic night, a fantastic result, and I do think, and I hope for 26, but I do think it could be the start. That was the start of the downfall of the SNP. I do hope it continues into 2026, and we can get rid of the SNP out of Holyrood. That would top it. That would top everything.
Yes.
If we do an election night, and I'm sure you will do one, an election night in 2026, and we get rid of the SNP, that would top it. But the general election night was probably the best one.
Yeah, that was a good show. I enjoyed that a lot. Mary, you're up. You don't get a segment this week. You just get to talk about your experiences.
Thank you. Doing the show has been great. I now know an awful lot about government-made crisis and political ineptitude. I've learned a lot there, like the ferry scandal, where we learned how the SNP grabbed headlines for a day, announcing 2 run-of-the-mill ferries, and then got mired in scandals for years trying to deliver them, not to mention that they cost the taxpayers about 5 times more than they should have. The education crisis, where Scottish standards are falling off a cliff, sadly. The drug and alcohol deaths crisis, where the Scottish government would rather feed addictions with their harm reduction policies, like consumption rooms, rather than offer rehab beds and proper treatment that people need. And I think the highlight has been all the wacky policies from the Greens. Reporting on those has just been crazy. We've got Ross Greer, who cheered on a housing crisis emergency with rent freezes and his loathing for landlords, like and we've got Lippy Lorna's bottle return scheme that was going to cost the taxpayers hundreds of millions of pounds for absolutely nothing. A total runaround and waste of time. Patrick Harvey with his stupid idea of banning our gas central heating. He wanted us to use noisy, expensive air pumps. That's all been trashed, of course. These idiots have been intent on destroying everything that we hold dear in Scotland. And the latest headlines are saying that Swinney may make a deal with them again. So we'll need to try and prevent that. And I really wish I could say that something in Scotland is better than before devolution, better than before the SNP took power, or even better since 3 years ago when we started the show, that something had improved. But I honestly can't think of a single thing. But it's been great to get all these issues off our chests every week and treat them with the ridicule that they deserve. It's been a blast.
Well done.
Right, very good. Now, it is. Now, normally I would say things you can do to support the majority. You can still support the majority. We're still on social media and so on. You can buy a T-shirt or a mug. You can tell all your friends about us. And you can do all of the above, which is only 2 things now, which makes us extremely happy and fulfilled, underlined exclamation mark. Now, it is the moment you have all been waiting for. It's the highlight of the last 3 years. It is the ultimate Zoomers.
Yay!
Right, you can see it's no expense spared on using the same graphic.
We are running very long tonight, guys. I hope people can stay with us.
I know, a few minutes.
Yeah.
Right, my ultimate Zoomer is Humza Yousaf. Look, I could spend a lot of time on his lack of leadership skills, his lack of political skills, his support for Gaza terrorists, but this one video says it all. And let's have another one. Let's go, and one more time. Can we do it one more time? Let's try that one more time.
Absolute clown.
Yes, I rest my case. And that Scotland elected such
a
buffoon is testament to how crass, testament to how toxic nationalism has warped Scottish minds. I mean, the idea that this man, who doesn't appear to care about Scotland at all, has failed in almost everything he's done. He's failed in everything he's done. Not almost everything he's done. Failed in everything he's done. Was to the head of a party in Scotland, the head of the administration. It's absolutely a joke. A joke. Anyone could look at that video and just go, "This guy is not suitable for anything. Not suitable to even run a scooter." I mean, really.
He shouldn't be allowed out without his mummy.
Fine, that's it. Okay. I could go on, but I'm not going to go on. Right. David, you're up next.
Alan Jack says strong start.
Yes, strong start.
Well, Here I am.
Hold on,
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
on.
There you are.
We have a comment here from James Cameron. He says, "I will be disappointed if David doesn't mention Leslie Riddoch."
Well, in that case, James, how you read my mind. My nomination for Ultimate Zoomer is, in fact, Leslie Riddoch. How do you like that? The Wolverhampton-born, Belfast-raised Scottish nationalist fanatic who is the most eager propagandist in the whole of the SNP ranks. Can I just go over some of her highlights in the last 3 years?
Please do.
Confidently predicting and saying that all roads led to a second independence referendum in May 2022. Nice one, Leslie. Well called. Then she predicted, guess who she thought would take over as Scottish Labour leader after Richard Leonard? Yes, that's right, Gordon Brown. Brilliant, Leslie. Well called again.
Okay. All right.
And stating in all seriousness, after driving from Sweden to Denmark, or the other way around, that all we need, if Scotland is independent, is a contactless card machine that she then got out of her car,
That's right,
and held it up to the wrong place, so couldn't get through. So that's Leslie Riddoch for you, but most of all, for refusing several iterations of me saying to her, you know, Leslie, seeing as you're an Irish nationalist when you're having lived in Ireland, and now you're living in Scotland, you're a Scottish nationalist, if you'd stayed in Wolverhampton, what party would you have supported? Would it be maybe the BNP? And she never answers me, but I think we all know, guys, let's be honest. She would be shaking a collection tin for Nigel Farage right now if she was still in Wolverhampton, because that's what she is. And she's also nothing more than what would you say, a clown who just swallows and regurgitates every piece of nationalist propaganda. It's pathetic, and you're a laughing stock. So yeah, you're my ultimate Zoomer, Mrs. Riddoch.
Yes. That's a strong contender as well. I don't know.
We should say that the viewers, we're waiting for the viewers to vote. They're going to decide who is going to be the ultimate Zoomer.
Yes, you can. Yes, okay. Well, so I'll do that formal. Please vote for your choice as the ultimate Zoomer, and make sure it's Humza yourself. Oh, I didn't hear that bit. Right. Okay. Now, or it could be Leslie Riddoch. Now, okay, up to Mark. Mark, hold on. Let me do this thing. Okay.
Well, my ultimate Zoomer. Now, we cannot finish a show. We cannot have a Zoomer's ultimate Zoomer without mentioning the infamous Nicola Sturgeon. And that's my Zoomer, and it's got to be a winner. It's got to be a winner. So get voting for it. Anyway, why is she the ultimate Zoomer? Well, I could go on for a few weeks with this one, but I won't. A handling of COVID. A press conferences, daily press conferences, where she said, I won't make political statements about COVID, and then went on to make political statements about COVID weekly. Her biggest achievement, baby boxes. We can't mention Nicola Sturgeon without mentioning baby boxes. That is her biggest achievement. Bringing the Greens into government. That's another one. We could bringing Humza up through the ranks, promoting him to transport minister, to health minister, and then to first minister. Putting that guy into our lives. She was responsible for that. So I'm sorry, Mark, but that's Sturgeon's got to be on top on that one. There's so many things you can mention about Nicola Sturgeon, but one thing that she did rather well, she brought down the SNP. That's something we've got to thank her for, because she helped reduce the SNP and bring it down. So we got to thank her for that. But yes, Nicola Sturgeon, for all those years of dictating to the Scottish people, the chief mammy, that was it, wasn't it? The chief mammy or something. Yes. Now,
terrible.
She has to be the ultimate.
And so, and by popular request, we will play the moment to that. The cracks really begin to show.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with here. The question I'm asking. Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman. So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman. No, there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate. Is there any context in which a woman born as a woman will be housed in the male estate? Look, we're talking here about trans women.
And I'm now asking about women born as women.
I don't think there are circumstances there, but...
So it's different for trans women?
Well, yes, and I'm not...
So they're not equal?
That is not... There is a risk assessment process done for trans women that takes account of the nature of the crime. Clearly, significant concern arises out of sexual crime and whether it's appropriate for them to be in a female prison or a male prison.
Oh, well, that was the tongue twister, so to speak, of that started.
I think he might just have won it for me, Mark, with that video.
Well,
that video might just have won it for me.
You know, it's like that versus the scooter. That's the thing. Now, Mary, are you going to do one, or are you not going to do one?
I'm not doing one. I think the contenders are pretty good.
Right.
If I was going to do one, it would be the Greens. It would be Patrick Harvey, Lorna Slater, and Ross Greer. But I'm not doing one.
Right, okay. Well, just so, because you always get the Mary wins, you know, the Mary wins comments, right? So just making sure that you get your wee bit in there, right?
This person's hedging their bet saying that Mark wins. Now we've got 2 marks. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mary, you can
going from the comments here, I think, when Nicola Sturgeon wanted the bottom of the doors cut off. I think that seals it. I think it's going to be Nicola Sturgeon.
Oh, yes.
So,
crap lawyer, Mark wins.
Done, Mark.
Yes. Okay, wait, I typed that in. I think it has to be Nicholas.
So
I thought it was going to be Humza.
A big win for you, Mark, there.
Well, I think anyone who picked Nicola Sturgeon to be the Zoomer was going to win. But Humza,
I don't know.
I was quite. I was starting to think Humza might just win it because, let's face it, the guy was just one big Zoomer.
I could have done a more impassioned speech, but I think let's one more time.
And down he goes.
Oh, that's gonna hurt.
It's just ridiculous. Right. Okay, we are at the final segments here. Good, well done, and thank you for everyone who put in a vote there. Now, we have been so happy to have all of you with us on the show every week. Scotland's #1 politics chat. Thank you. This is going to be difficult, this part.
Go on, buddy.
My final thought is: don't be sad it's over. Just be glad it happened. We had a great run and we love doing the show. I'd like to thank all the guests that we had on the show. I'd like to thank David and Mark for the insights and Mary for her relentless determination to get every comment and put it out on your screen. Most of all, I'd like to thank you, our viewers, for being part of our show and for supporting us for these past 3 years. We'll miss you here, but you can always find us on social media where the fight continues. Thank you all for your support. And if any of you guys want to say some final words, Mary.
Well, thanks everyone for all the thousands and thousands of comments over the years. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
David.
Thanks everyone for all of the interactions. I know you don't always agree with me, but most of the time you do. So most of the comments have been very supportive, and it's been one of the great pleasures of my life helping to get these absolute charlatans out of office, and I'm going to carry on doing it as long as I have breath in my body. So thanks everyone. Fantastic.
And Mark.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for having me on, especially to you, Mark and Mary, for and David, for all your hard work that you've done over the last 3 years, especially behind the scenes, because it's been awesome. It's been a great show.
Okay, so thank you all for being with us for all this time. We will see you again. Of course, we're all on social media. Thanks a lot, and take care. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.